The Milwaukee Bucks just waived Damian Lillard, which has shocked pretty much everybody, including the big man himself. My initial reaction was, wow, I can't believe that they waived Dame and signed Myles Turner. Then it was, well, if they can get a decent point guard, then maybe this will work. And then it went to, oh, so Micic might very well possibly be their answer to that. So never mind. According to Chris Haynes, Giannis is unhappy with the situation, and I think his own tweet would very much back up that notion.
Giannis Antetokounmpo is not pleased with the Bucks' decision to buy out Damian Lillard for the remainder of his contract, and he just didn't like how it was handled.
We haven't gotten a concrete answer to what Giannis's future looks like in Milwaukee, and honestly, this only adds to that confusion, so let's try and work our way through it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video, and check us out over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you would like to enjoy this as an audio-only experience. So the first thing that I want to say out of the gate is I'm very sorry for Damian Lillard. This is just absolutely a depressing set of circumstances. Obviously, first and foremost, tearing your Achilles absolutely sucks. But while I'm sure most people can look at this as really just a matter of desperate times, call for desperate measures type stuff from the Bucks, I can't help but feel like it's also a little bit confidence shattering if you're Damian Lillard, that they're like, yeah, we're not sticking through this crap. You're not worth it. You're not worth, paying $60 million just to not play because we don't really trust that you're going to be that good when you come back. Yeah, that sucks. That's terrible for Damian Lillard. I'm not one really for the concept of karma, but if you were ever asking for some karma to bite you in the ass by making a move in the NBA, waiving and stretching the guy who you went out of your way to trade for, who you said was the future of the franchise, who is supposed to be the Kobe to Giannis's Shaq, after he tears his Achilles in a series that I believe he was dealing with some sort of injury going into it, and he still ended up playing anyways to play through that injury to try and help your team. It's pretty ugly. It's not good. It reminds me of what the Boston Celtics kind of got for a few years after trading Isaiah Thomas, where just a bunch of different players were like, fuck no, we're not going to sign with the Celtics. You assholes did that to Isaiah Thomas. I feel like the Bucks could very well find themselves in a similar circumstances. Curious about there is just, is anybody going to sign Damian Lillard? Because obviously he's not going to play next year, or if he does, it'd be at the very tail end of that year. And, do you really want to dedicate a portion of your cap to a guy who, yes, was a star player, but very well might not be when he comes back? Doing that just to rehab him, all of that just for him to come back and not be good. It would just be like a lot of time and energy invested, even if you can get him for pennies on the dollar in terms of his contract. I don't know. That's a weird kind of project for a franchise to take on. And for someone who's as old as he is, coming off of the worst injury that you can absolutely have, I don't know that there's going to be a lot of interest. I also do think maybe it could just be like Rudy was saying earlier, that maybe the Portland Trailblazers would get him because you can just get him for very little money, have him be like a mentor for Scoot Henderson. He still serves a valuable purpose while not being on the floor in that way. And then he can just kind of play out a few years at the end of his career back in Portland where it all started and mostly happened. That's interesting. But it's not exactly the end to Damian Lillard's career that we were all hoping for. At least I was. I wanted to see the guy win a championship. I wanted to see him do it in Milwaukee. In fact, I'm pretty certain I picked the Bucks to win the title after they traded for Damian Lillard. I really, really believed in him there. I really, really believed in that team. He got worse there. Part of that was Giannis just isn't really the most ideal big man to pair with a guard like that in hindsight, just because he's not really much of a screen setter. Still likes to do a lot of isolation stuff. So yeah, the other thing that I feel about this is the new CBA is some bullshit, man. DeAndre Ayton's contract getting waived and extended was one thing, but Dame's contract he still was owed $122 million fucking dollars, and that's getting stretched over 5 seasons, which means like 21 to 23-ish million dollars every single year is going to be counted against Milwaukee's cap sheet without anything that they can do with that money. It's just $22 million a year of dead cap for the next decade. And when you consider how the next half decade, decades are 10 years. When you consider how fucking destitute the Bucks are asset-wise, you then add how little cap flexibility they already had and will now continue to have because of this for a prolonged period. It's just a nightmare scenario, and the only reason that they felt the need to do this is because they were in such a bind financially that it's literally the only thing that they could do to add a good NBA player to this roster was to say, fuck it, Dame, you're gone, because if we waive and extend you, it technically clears $30 million in cap space, which we can use to add Myles Turner. And here's the thing. I don't hate the Myles Turner addition in theory, just looking at it strictly in terms of how he would fit next to Giannis, I think it's great. It's basically applying the same principle as Brook Lopez. I do think he's a worse defender than Brook was at his absolute peak, but he is a better shooter and overall scorer than Brook Lopez. So, I think that works just fine. But if Myles Turner is the biggest swing you're going to make when this team was as desperate as it is, that's a huge L. Because sure, do you want to say Myles Turner, he's averaged 18 points before. He's never even really been that much a focal point of an offense. Maybe we get him in here and he's a 20 point per game scorer for us. Sure, that is possible. I wouldn't be shocked at all if Myles Turner averaged like 20-ish points per game for the Bucks next year. But do you think that's going to be better than what Damian Lillard was? Do you think that's going to be better than what you had before Damian Lillard? No, it's not going to be better, and it's going to be worse, and you were already in a downward trajectory. This is not putting it on the upswing. Not really. Maybe it puts you on the upswing for next season, but it's literally just that one season. It's an extremely short-sighted move with a bunch of long-term consequences. I think Gary Trent Jr. as well as AJ Green make for really solid starters, so getting them back and getting them as your starters alongside Giannis and Myles Turner, that's cool. Gary and AJ, I believe, were both starting by the time that Pacers series was over, because as much as their other wings were able to do stuff that was more well-rounded, all-around basketball, just simply having two snipers next to Giannis was really the best thing that they could do for themselves offensively. So if you have Gary, you have AJ, you have Myles Turner at least shooting his three ball well in the regular season, doing a lot more mid-range scoring, a little bit more stuff in the post. I do think there's enough there that you can create a respectable enough offense. I really think you need a strong perimeter creator, and as of now, their only real option in that category is going to be Kevin Porter Jr., who not only shouldn't be in the league, but he's also just not very good. He's got his moments. He'll have games where he puts up big scoring numbers. He's one of those guys who is very jump shot heavy while not being very good at jump shooting, but when you get him on a game where the jump shots are going in, he looks like a fucking all-star. It's not something you can really bank on long term, though. And the other choice, Micic, is apparently going to get waived and stretched as well, which is interesting. I think no stretch, just bought out. Okay. I guess it makes some sense. He's going to go back to Europe, and I don't think it means that they'll have to pay for all of his salary in that instance. So yeah, I just don't know. Maybe they have some other move up their sleeves. Maybe there's something that can be done, but I doubt it. They don't have the assets. You'd have to find someone who's man, Kyle Kuzma or Bobby Portis are really, really cool. What if we gave you a good point guard for one of them? I don't think that makes a lot of sense, to be completely honest with you. It is a real stretch, and I just don't think they're going to do that. So no draft capital to trade, virtually zero players who are worth a damn, worth any kind of any major return at all. Literally your best players that you would consider trading right now are AJ Green, Gary Trent Jr., Bobby Portis, and Kyle Kuzma. That's pretty rough. That's pretty bad. Don't like that if I'm Milwaukee, and I certainly don't like that if I'm Giannis, because they're right back where they were salary-wise. The only difference is now they're going to have Myles Turner instead of all of that salary being wasted on Damian Lillard, who's not playing. But again, that's literally just for the 1 year. So at the end of it, next year, you're going to say, okay, again, we don't have any draft capital to trade. We still don't have any young players to trade. And now we're not like potentially having a superstar guard make his triumphant return. No, it's just $22 million that's on the book, and then someone else gets to see the fruit of that potential return from Dame. I just don't think this is going to work out. It's further prolonging the inevitable, and given the reaction that seems to be what people are saying from Giannis is a negative one, his tweet definitely doesn't signal that he's like thrilled with what's going on there. Chris Haynes is not always the most reliable source. He's not like a gets it right every time guy, but I tend to believe that Giannis is a little upset with how this Damian Lillard situation was handled, especially from just like a human perspective. Like, I know that Giannis cares about his team winning, but he's also not like some super cutthroat guy who's like, yeah, get that guy off my roster. He's not useful to me anymore. Like, I don't think he's like this evil mustache twirling villain who's okay with that like objectively kind of shitty thing to do to his teammate, even if it's not like they have some crazy bond or anything like that. It's still just a shitty thing to do on a human level, and I'm sure he feels very sorry for Damian Lillard. And again, what's going to happen here? What is Giannis? Giannis is going to have to carry again. He's going to have to average 30 plus points per game. He's going to have to average like 8 assists this upcoming year, as it turns out, probably, because they don't have any point guard play. Maybe there'll be a good enough offense and a pretty good defense between Myles and Giannis that they'll be they're in the East. I still think they'd be a playoff team. I think you could make a playoff team in the East with Giannis and then 15 2K generated players. But would he want to keep doing that? I don't really see why he would. I think maybe this will be enough to keep Giannis rostered going into next season, but I think the reality of the situation, if it hasn't dawned on him already, will pretty quickly next year, and he could very well end up going by the trade deadline. And if that didn't happen, because it's not common for a guy of his caliber to be moved at the trade deadline, then it's gonna happen this next offseason, because I've seen so many Bucks fans still coping, being like, Giannis is never going to leave. If Giannis never leaves, it's because he's dumb. Do you understand me? If Giannis never leaves, it is because he is blindly loyal and does not care about his own career accomplishment, which he has signaled time and time again is not the case. Never has Giannis said that he's unconditionally guaranteed gonna be a Milwaukee Buck forever. And if there were ever some fucking conditions, these are that. He has reiterated year after year after year, I want to spend the rest of my career in Milwaukee, and so long as they can facilitate me being competitive for a championship every year, then I'm going to keep being here. Well, guess what? This shit is not good enough to win a championship. It's not even close. So I don't think Giannis is going to be a Milwaukee Buck for long. This might have been enough to have him suit up next year, though. And if the only goal of the Bucks is to just delay this inevitable, well, then I guess mission accomplished. But it's just kind of sad. I would just much rather see the Milwaukee Bucks move on, because frankly, this is just going to be a lose-lose relationship for both sides the whole time, because the Bucks aren't going to gain much by being the 5th seed and losing in the first round year after year after year, because that's basically the best case scenario we're looking at here. The only other way is if you just have some random dude just blow up on this team. Like, you get like an Austin Reeves type situation and you luck your way into that, but you're asking for a complete miracle at that point. So just trade Giannis. Do we have to keep doing this? Just trade him. Just please. We're done with this. I wanted Giannis to play his career in Milwaukee, but if you have any level of sense, if you look at just the history of how rosters work, especially in this last decade, this isn't going to work. It's just not. So yeah, That's it. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry if you're a Bucks fan. I'm sure today has been rough, but that is it. Goodbye.